Bam! Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this episode, a combo episode of The Branca Show and Making Law Simple. I am, of course, attorney Anna Branca with The Branca Show, and I have with me my friend and fellow attorney and LawTuber, David. David, why don't you tell the audience about your channel, about yourself?
Yeah, so my channel is called Making Law Simple. I also have a Lego Law Life and Libation channel, which we're not streaming to right now, but I am a licensed practicing attorney in the state of Michigan. General practice attorney. I mainly focus on criminal appellate cases these days, but I do have a substantial background in civil matters, which we are going to discuss today.
Okay, so of course we're here to talk about the bricks and misfits thing. YouTuber misfits? Oh, Minifigs. Sorry,
Minifigs. Okay,
the whole story involves a lot of misfits. For sure. So a YouTuber that goes by Reckless Ben had done a video basically entitled, what was the title of the video? Something like, I discovered who stole $200,000 worth of, I have it here. I tracked down the thief who stole $200,000 of Lego. And yes. I want to say up front, Ben Schneider is the YouTuber's actual name. This is a very high quality video, very high production value, very entertaining. This is a talented and smart guy. He's not a lawyer, obviously. It's not hard to tell.
He was in my chat the other day, and when he was in there, I said, "Listen, I wish I had the time, the energy, and the balls to do what you did, because it's really risky, as his name implies."
Now, I'm watching Ben's very entertaining video. And portions of it involve the bricks and misfits. Let me give kind of an overview, actually, of the facts for anybody who might not know. So Ben's video involves an arrangement where a man, Brian Mansell, and his father had a very extensive collection of Legos, which they value at roughly $200,000. And Brian Mansell's father was elderly and sick, and he wanted to sell off the set. So they bring the Legos to a local franchise store, a franchise of Bricks and Minifigs corporate, but a separately owned franchise. And they bring the Legos there, and the store agrees to take the Legos on consignment, meaning they'll take possession of the Legos. The Legos remain owned by the Mansell until such a time as they're sold in the store. And then the store and the Mansells split the revenue from each Lego set sold. Very, very common model consignment. And then things begin to get complicated because the store gets seized from the franchise owner for various forms of failure to meet their obligations to corporate. New owners are brought in. And Brian Mansell hears about this, and he calls the store to try to find out, hey, what's the deal with the remaining Legos? And no one seems to have any idea what happened to the Legos. So Brian Mansell obviously feels like his Legos have been stolen, right? He doesn't have them. Nobody claims to have them. Nobody claims to have them and be able to return them. He doesn't know what's going on. So Ben Schneider gets involved, and he does this extensive video about this whole affair. Now, Ben Schneider his videos are funny because he creates chaos, in large part intentional chaos. And so that obviously does not help clarify matters much. And as part of his video, he goes to the corporate headquarters of all this. It's called BAM, B-A-M, for Bricks and Minifigs. He speaks to the CEO there. And again, the title of the show is that they discovered who stole $200,000 worth of Legos. And he calls the CEO a liar when the CEO says, I don't have your Legos. And he engages in a lot of conduct that now is the basis for a lawsuit by BAM against Ben Schneider, against the previous franchise holders, against the Mansells for things like nuisance and harassment, intentional infliction of emotional harm, defamation against the corporation. And by the way, the reputation for Bricks and Minifigs has been profoundly damaged by all this. So the damages possible here are just enormous.
Although I would argue some of the damage might have been caused by the CEO and the COO going public and saying some things that they for sure. Like
there's no geniuses in Ben Schneider, as goofy as he comes across sometimes, may be the smartest person in this entire conversation. I mean, there's no geniuses involved in any aspect of this, for sure. So we have this.
So you wanted to, you were taking a little bit of flack.
For me, the key is, right, I'm looking at the video and I'm looking for the evidence that BAM Corporate stole this guy's Legos. And I just don't see it in the video. And so I did a show on this saying, I don't see the evidence that BAM Corporate stole this guy's Legos. And if it's true they stole it and you say they stole it, you're fine. But if it's not true they stole it and you say they stole it, it's pretty defamatory. And while I was doing that show on my own channel, people in my chat were saying, hey, you've got to reach out to David. David did a show on this, and he's got a completely different take than you. You should watch his video. And instead of watching your video, I just decided to reach out and say, hey, why don't we do a stream together where you can inform the audience of your take, and I'm amenable to persuasion.
Yeah. So great. Thank you for having me on, by the way. This is awesome. It's been a while since we streamed together, although we've done it a few times before. But my take on this was, well, first of all, let's establish the parameters. When a layman says stole, and we're talking about a civil matter, what we're really talking about is conversion, right? That's the civil theft. And what we're talking about is somebody exercising essentially like control over, or essentially control over, as if they were the owner of personal property when they don't have any legal right to.
And they know they don't. I mean, that's important too, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
if you go pick up a rental car, right, and you drive the rental car out of the airport and you get to your hotel and you discover someone else's suitcase in the back of your car, you didn't steal it, right? You didn't even know it existed. And if you think you have a right to something, you may be proven wrong. You may have liability and have to prove, but there's no malice there, is the point.
Right.
And stealing suggests malice, right? It's not an inadvertent conversion.
Correct. Yeah. So you can convert things accidentally, under the civil statute. But I was just trying to really like set this out for people. When a layman says they stole this stuff, let's sue them, what we're really talking about is a conversion action. And so when you're talking about a conversion action, like I sat down and I looked at this, like, okay, a client came to me. Where are we starting? And obviously we need to follow the ownership interest. Obviously, we have Brian and his father. I don't think there's any dispute that his father transferred ownership to Brian in order for him to sell the goods on consignment. Then we have a consignment agreement, which purports to be a sell and return sort of agreement. But then also Brian maintains ownership interest of it. So that's normal in a consignment, right? I mean, what we have is a bailment happening. So you're it's like when you go to a coat check, right? You check your coat. They don't own your coat. They can't sell your coat. They're just holding it safely for you until you return it, and then they give it back to you. In the case of a consignment, it's a kind of bailment where ideally you're not getting the property back. You're getting the revenue from the sale of the property. Exactly. So where the breakdown is, and I've seen a lot of other attorneys or just people commenting about it that may or may not know the fine details. But it's when the property is in the physical possession of the franchise, does it become subject to the franchise creditors? That's the biggest issue. That's fundamentally what this turns on, because if it becomes, like, I used the example of Target, like the other day. Target buys most of its good on credit, and that's why we call Black Friday Black Friday. It's usually the date when stores are finally able to pay off their loans for all their merchandise. If Target defaulted on those, the bank or whoever's loaning them the money can go in and seize all their assets as part of collateral. Now, if Target, not that I know that they do, but if they happen to be selling something on consignment, the question is all the product in the store and that consignment stuff, can that come with? And that's the exact situation we have here. The corporate, pursuant to the franchise agreement, has a lien on that inventory. And so when they seized the franchise in November of 2024, did corporate have a right to take the consigned goods with them as part of their lien on any of the goods contained within the store? That's really what this turns out. Am I off base, or is that your position too, Bronco?
I think that's reasonable. Would it be easier if I just stipulate that, in my view, corporate would not have a right to that property, the consigned property?
I mean, that's basically what I'm arguing under Oregon law. Under Oregon law, even though, so technically,
Because I don't think it's legally an asset of the franchisee. So
well,
it's not their property.
It could be under the UCC, because if Brian didn't record a UCC filing perfecting the lien, then in theory it could be subject to the franchisee's creditors, including corporate. So if the Utah courts are applying Oregon law, which I think they should apply Oregon law because these transactions took place in Oregon, and like choice of law for the consignment agreement is Oregon, choice of law for the franchise agreement is Utah. The cases are filed. There's two cases. They're filed in Utah, but I still think because the major actions took place in Oregon, Oregon law would apply. So,
but is corporate arguing that they had a legal right to the property?
I think they are
on this basis.
I think they are. I think they're saying, and I might be wrong, but based on what I've heard, they're saying that they had the right to take those goods as part of the lien that they had because the franchise owners were in default.
But it's a subtle point, right? Because normally BAM corporate, my understanding is they don't want their stores to do consignments. They tell their stores not to do consignments under the franchise agreement. So in that case, I mean, if you think of a lot of this is miscommunication, right? But I can imagine BAM corporate comes in, the franchisee's not been paying their royalty fees and hasn't been paying their rent, and so they're seizing the franchise back from Crystal Law and Benjamin Gorman, the original franchise owners here. They're seizing the store back, and they may not have in their mind that there's even a consignment issue here. Now, I know there's a phone call where somebody on the phone is saying the new guys but that's not really corporate. That's like a customer service rep. Corporate may not have any idea that there's a consignment. If they know there's some consignment, they may not know it's a $200,000 consignment. I mean, they may have treated this whole arrangement very much differently if they were aware that was in play.
They may have. So if we're going to go down the road of if corporate knew, then they don't get to take it. If we're going to go down there, I have a couple of things I want to discuss then. In the franchise agreement on page 4, under introduction, it talks about what the store is, what the franchisees can do, but also what corporate expects them to do. And then it says, additionally, franchisee may also offer, consignment services, approved themed entertainment services, approved off-site events, and then blah, 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 blah. So according to the franchise agreement, which is signed, which is part of these lawsuits, consignment services are allowed. Now, we saw the clip in Reckless Ben's first video where, as you just discussed, corporate is on the phone, allegedly, corporate is on the phone, and they say, I have all these products. I need these tickets so that I know how much I have to pay this guy because he hasn't been paid for everything. That's the clip that we saw. And I think I sent you like the raw video version of that. I don't know if you were going to pull it up or anything.
Yeah, I think I have it right here. Hold on. But go ahead, keep talking.
Well, there's a new clip. So somebody, since all of this, has actually dropped a unredacted versions of some of these police body cam videos from when Reckless Ben was in Utah and trying to serve Josh. That one is even more telling. And I pulled out, if I can share my screen, I don't know if I'm able to. Yeah, I can. Okay. I want to play this, if you don't mind. Hopefully we got the audio too. So this is a 30-second clip taken on March 10th of 2026 outside Josh's house. This is the police talking to Josh when Reckless Ben is trying to serve him. You got to pull it up. I can't pull it up. I could just share it.
Oh, I see. Okay. Hold on.
All right. So this, I think, is even more telling than that initial phone call.
From the
you guys
store.
Hear it, right? Can you hear it?
Yeah, we can hear it. Yep.
Okay. All right. Let me just back it up.
From the store in Oregon.
Yeah, I showed him a video. He shows up in his underwear and breaks things.
Own the store, or you just work for Bricks and
So
Minifigs?
when we first took it over, we were just employees. We're there to rescue it. Then, like 4 months into it, we said, sure, we'll sign a franchise agreement. So like April or May, we signed a franchise agreement for it, not knowing how big of a mess this is. And then we operated it until this last month. We closed the doors, and it's
Okay. So what he's saying there is that he was first brought in as sort of cleanup to, or something along those lines. And I don't want to misquote him. It was in the video. So to me, I'm hearing that he's working for corporate, because remember, that's what Crystal, the original franchisee owner, said, that corporate came in, kicked us out. And then we were looking and we said, well, that's the new franchise owner. How is that corporate? Well, he just explained that he was there for 4 months cleaning things up, him and his partner, the other guy, I can't remember his name, working for corporate, getting the store was presumably still open, or at least they were doing inventory. They were figuring out what was there. And then 4 months later, they purchased the franchise. So is
and I think that's fair. I think it's corporate taking the store, but I'm not sure that fully answers the question. I do have that clip here of that discussion. Everyone keeps pointing this out to me as if it's a very powerful proof of something. So I'm just going to play it. It's from the inside the store when it's being taken over, and they're having that. There's somebody on a speakerphone.
These are ones that he has not been paid his percentage yet. And if I don't have the tickets, I won't know how much I need to pay them.
That's a business thing and not necessarily yours. He's taking on the business, he takes on all that consignment.
All right, so what I hear there, it's a voice on speakerphone, somebody at corporate. People keep telling me, oh, that was the operations director. There's nothing in this video that tells me who that is, or if they have any position of authority at all. I see all these claims thrown around. And the other thing is, I don't see the person on the phone acknowledging that they're talking about, that he's aware, that's what's being discussed, is the man sells $200,000 consignment arrangement. For all we know, someone said, he's thinking, oh, listen, this store's been doing some consignments. Don't worry about it. The new owners will take it over. He doesn't know he's obligating his corporation to a $200,000 commitment.
Right. And I would agree with you that this clip, I'd like to hear more of this clip, because according to Crystal, when she gave I can't remember if it was an interview or their own video that they dropped, she identifies this person as a specific individual. And she also names this person in her complaint as the one that she was speaking with, gives their title, and then says that there was more of a conversation than just that little clip. So I've received the raw video of it, but again, it's still just that clip. It doesn't have the music and stuff behind it. I'd like to hear more of that. And I agree with you that there's more to that. But let's assume, just for the sake of this, that the courts find that this is a upper level employee, but the allegation is he's like 3 or 4
with the power
down from the CEO
to commit to bind the corporation.
To bind the corporation.
Right.
Does that then change your position on whether or not corporate knew that this consignment existed? Like if just with the elevation of this individual.
I mean, I think if we have an officer level position of the corporation engaged in these communications, you have to infer that the corporation is doing this. But of course, not everybody in a corporation can commit to corporation, right?
Right.
So it would have to be a senior level but if a vice president of operations says, yes, I'm aware this is a $200,000 consignment and we're accepting responsibility for it, then they've accepted responsibility for it. I am very skeptical of anything Crystal Law has to say about this stuff, because it strikes me that of the 3 groups involved, the old franchisees, Crystal Law, the new franchisees, Brandon and Josh, and BAM Corporate, the parties most likely at fault here is Crystal Law.
Oh, I would agree. I would agree that Crystal and I think her husband Ben were also both owners. I absolutely agree that they are liable. They're liable from the straight up breach of contract issues. It's cut and dry. I think the problem is they don't have the money, right? They're not collectible, right? So you sue the party that's collectible. In the long run, you try to go up the ladder till you find someone that's collectible.
The deep pockets, right?
Yeah, and can we connect the corporation. Now, interesting. So I looked into this using Oregon law. There's a couple of cases that are interesting from Oregon standpoint. There's a Miller v. McDonald's Corporation. Now, this was a tort liability, not a contract dispute. But it said because the level of control that McDonald's had over its franchisees was so great into what they can't do, what they can sell, what they can't sell, you know, the hours that they have to operate and all this stuff, that anything that happens at the franchisee, the corporate is responsible for. That's under Oregon law. And we can get into, you know, a lot of detail with that. But in the case, it breaks down in the franchise agreement with McDonald's. It says this, and this. And I kind of compared them side by side with the franchise agreement. And particularly the first section where it says you're only going to sell, you know, bricks and minifigs approved apparel. You're only going to sell, you know, Lego products or knockoff Legos that bricks and minifig approves, and all these other restrictions. And you have to use their signage and their banners and you have to host parties. And, you know, there was so much control that I think there's a strong argument that the buck stops with corporate just based on the level of control. If you look at the, again, the case is Miller v. McDonald's Corp., and that's 1997. The other case I looked at, which was an interesting case because it was actually a referral from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to the Oregon Supreme Court that said, please answer these questions. And what they had was a consignment from a shoe dealer to a shoe wholesaler, I think. I don't even think it was a retailer, like a shoe manufacturer. And the bank had foreclosed on all the accounts for the wholesaler and took the money that was being held on consignment. So the question was presented is, does money count under the UCC? That was one of the issues that was put to the Oregon Supreme Court. And they said, no, it doesn't, but we're going to treat it like it was. And then they go through a whole analysis, like perfect for this sort of situation. And what they come to is that if the store was known to sell products of somebody else on consignment, then the lien holders are constructively placed on notice. So it goes back to your argument. If they can demonstrate that corporate knew, I think this law binds corporate.
All right, so let's say that's true. I am, however, distinguishing between, it turns out corporate had legal liability for this property and needs to make good on it just because that's what the law says. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. That's a different thing than saying corporate stole this guy's Legos, right? They knew they were in possession of property they were not allowed to have.
Right.
So when we have the interview with the CEO, that little bit of tape, let me pull that up because I set that aside too.
On AOC's or what, that other channel.
The Ben Schneider. No. I'm not talking about an interview. I just mean the Ben Schneider video.
Oh, okay.
I'm really focused just on that video because.
Sure.
Hold on. Let's see.
Because
when I say I don't see evidence of the stealing of what I'm really basing it on is the Ben Schneider video. I know we have a lot of information that's come out since then, but this clip.
She can't help me.
We've been supposed to be getting a hold of corporate.
Basically what the manager's saying is that if someone did steal the Legos, it wasn't her, it was corporate. But little does the manager know, I already did this. Yep, I literally went to the corporate Bricks and Minifigs headquarters.
Where's he going?
And this was corporate side of the story.
You have to talk to the store owner. Yeah, like they're all locally owned.
Now I'm presuming these are low-level employees, but I want to get to the part with the CEO.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, there he is. I love the mustache.
So to continue the video without getting arrested, I went back to Bricks and Minifigs corporate offices. And the Bricks and Minifigs CEO, the guy who runs the entire company, Ammon McNeff, he personally came out to talk to us.
So what's going on?
So you guys are holding some of our Legos?
No, we're not.
You're not?
No.
Is that a lie?
No.
That's a lie. You did take the Legos.
No. We have our attorneys have visited, like, again, so who's
Brian Mansell.
Okay,
right.
And who is that?
He's a guy who had he had like $200,000 worth of Legos in your guys' store.
Nope. Never happened.
I mean, it did happen. Yeah, it does happen.
No, we did not.
Yeah, because his logos were in the store and you guys took them. I know you think lying to us right now is kind of like helping you
I
out.
am not lying to you.
Well, look, we both know you're lying, but
No, we don't know that.
So I showed him some social media.
Okay, so the guy may genuinely not know anything about this stuff. Right? He may never have heard about this consignment at the time this conversation is happening. He's not lying if he doesn't know about it.
No, I agree with you 100%. I also want to point out something else. This image that he has up here, it says Bricks and Minifigures Salem, Kaiser. What's interesting, that's not corporate. That is the franchise's page. If you go to Bricks and Minifig and then you go to like, oh, let me click on their Facebook page, it takes you to the local one. Like it took me to the one closest to me. It doesn't take you to corporate. And so that's actually the old franchise owner's post. That's not corporate's post. So I want to point that out. Give corporate its due. That's not their post. The other thing is, I just sort of had a thought here. At one point, Brian said, and I don't know if this was in an interview or what it was. I heard this, and I might be wrong. But if this happened, then it'll be relevant. Brian said that before Reckless Ben got involved, he was trying to get the police involved. And he sent a friend in, because he had already been trespassed from the store. He sent a friend in to buy one of his sets. And he came out with the set and the receipt. This is after the new owners took over. So first of all, that's evidence that the sets were still there at the store and being sold. And then he took that to the police and he said, look, they're basically stealing from me. They're selling stuff that they don't have a right to sell and whatever. And the police didn't do anything, and probably not a police thing anyway. But if that story is true, then the product stayed at the store, or at least parts of it, some of it, at least one item anyway, stayed at the store and was purchased. And so I have sort of like a global resolution. Crystal and Ben, the first owners, are liable under breach of contract. The new franchisees owners might be liable under conversion and or unjust enrichment, and corporate's going to pay the bill at the end of the day. That's sort of like my thoughts. Like everyone's and if Ben, or not if Ben, if Brian loses out, Brian and his dad lose out, that's on them, because that consignment agreement is horrible. You don't go with the first consignment agreement you find on Google. You know,
well, obviously it didn't even take into consideration the possibility that there might be a change in franchise owners, right? I mean, that's not addressed at all in the consignment agreement. And by the way, I've put stuff on consignment before, but if I were putting $200,000 worth of stuff on consignment, I'd be pretty damn careful about it. I wouldn't just hand it to someone and sign a piece of paper I don't understand and walk away and think I was secure in that transaction.
I think Brian thought he did the right things, because he even mentions, he's like, we were careful about it. We itemized everything. The contract went back and forth. We worked out the terms. But the problem is when people that don't understand the law work out the terms, they think they're working out like, well, how much am I going to get? And how long is it going to be sold for? And they're forgetting about all the legal technical things that need to be in there to make it, enforceable and collectible and safe from creditors. They don't know that. And that's the problem. So everyone here kind of did the wrong thing. I mean, at the end of the day.
And nobody knows what they're doing here. I mean, Ben keeps calling it, there's criminal crimes and there's civil crimes, And
he did say, I don't know the difference. He did say that on a different video that he had posted. He's like, I don't know the difference.
And then he had the notary public stamp some papers as if that was an attestation of the truthfulness of the papers.
I wanted to talk about that, because that was interesting. So right now or at least back in March, there was a lawsuit filed by Ben against Josh and presumably the other guy. And I'm assuming it's for some sort of conversion or something, small claims action. But and I heard Viva and Nate the lawyer discussing this earlier, and they were all going around and around and around. It's not consignment. It's just like a debt collector, right? You could sign over debt. I do it all the time. I have outstanding invoices for my clients. I pay it all. I sell it to a debt collector, and they have all the proper title work and go sue and try to collect and do whatever. It's out of my hands. There's nothing unlawful about Ben buying that liability or that debt, presumably, so long as the debt is valid then Ben is the lawful owner of that debt and he can sue. So I did want to mention that. But I think,
but it was for the property, right? It wasn't for debt. It was Brian Mansell was saying, I own a Lego, right? It's not in my possession, but I own it. I'm going to sell you the Lego I don't have in my possession for whatever it was, $10,000.
Right.
And then Ben sued the store, the new franchise owners, I guess in small claims court, for that item, the value of the item, whatever.
Yeah, for that item or the value of the item. And I would say that is completely. Again, I'm not an Oregon attorney, but at least in Michigan, I could say that we have a lot of auto dealers. If you guys didn't know, Detroit kind of is in the auto industry, and we have tier 2, tier 1 suppliers, and there's parts that are being stored in warehouses and then delivered and bought and sold while they're still in the warehouses. That's a thing that happens. And you can sue. In fact, I represent a tier 2 supplier, and we sued a landlord that was housing product after an eviction on essentially the very same thing. We said that you took property and converted it instead of releasing it like you should. So I think that's a valid cause of action. I think the notary probably wasn't needed. I would almost guarantee it wasn't needed, but it added a bit of flair.
But all the notary is doing, of course, is just saying this is the person who signed their name to this document. It's not an attestation of the truthfulness of the document. I also wonder, how does Brian know what he has to sell? I mean, what is still legally his, right? He's not in possession of these items. Some they were put on consignment. Some of them were sold. The ones that are sold are no longer his property. They're the property of whoever the owner is, and I don't know that he knows what is in the pool of Lego collectibles that would still legally be his.
I'm trying to come up with sort of an analog. Like if I happen to own real estate up north in Michigan here, and it's on the coast, and I haven't been there in forever, but I know I own it. I've got the deed, and I say, hey, I'm going to sell this to you, and then I sell it to somebody, and then they go up there and it's underwater. And completely, it's just underwater because the water rose or whatever, the shore eroded. It's underwater. That person who's buying it, and let's say the neighbor caused the flooding or something like that. That person that bought it has the ability to go sue the neighbor, even though it was the other owner. I don't know. That's not a good analogy. I can't.
Yeah, I mean, let's simplify it. There's 5 widgets, right? You have 5 widgets. You put them on consignment. Some of them are sold. You don't know exactly which ones. The ones that aren't sold, you still own. In theory, the ones you still own, you could sell to somebody and they could sue over it. But you don't know which ones are left.
Under traditional common law consignment, at least in Oregon, that's actually touched on in one of these cases. It's like products. So it doesn't have to be the exact product. It has to be like products that are in the possession of the consignee. The consignor has a lien on, but it's, and they're talking about it subject to the lien from the creditor in which one is superior, but it's like products under the UCC. So it doesn't have to be the exact box. But getting to your point, you don't know which one, if there's, box A and box B and they're different, you don't know which one was sold. You sell, you sell.
Because they're not all identical, right? These are different sets, right?
Yeah, different
presumably
sets.
with different values. And
so the Millennium Falcon, you want to buy the Millennium Falcon and you essentially assign that to somebody on a piece of paper. You don't actually give it to them because you're not in possession of it, but you don't know if the Millennium Falcon still exists in the store where it's located.
If it's still your property, right? If it's been sold on consignment, then it's not your property anymore.
Yeah. So it's not an easy legal thing, I guess is what we're both saying, right? Like there's a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah, I mean, these are commercial transactions, right? They get complicated very, very quickly. I'm sure you took UCC in law school. I did. I hated every second of it. Uniform Commercial Code. It's a complicated set of rules that have been created to deal with commercial transactions, developed over hundreds of years, right? Of everything that could possibly go wrong. Let's make a note of it and come up with a rule for that. It's incredibly detailed. But of course, lay people don't know anything about this. Most lawyers don't know anything about it. I barely remember anything from UCC. That's why I had to
research.
law.
I had to research for this, because it's been a few years. And then I wanted to make sure I was looking at Oregon. Also, I did compare it with Utah. Interesting. Under Utah law, there is no carve-out exception for corporate having notice. So if there's Utah applied, then corporate's off the hook financially, I think. If Utah law is
So when the CEO in Utah is being questioned by Reckless Ben, that may be what he has in mind, right? So he's telling the truth as he knows it, even if it later turns out that it's not Utah law that applies, it's Oregon law that applies, and he is in fact on the hook. He's not lying, and they didn't steal. And the trouble is, if you say these things, and Ben said this stuff, I mean, he set up a whole company, right? I steal from old people. I mean, it's what makes his video so entertaining. But there has been enormous damage done, and not entirely by the CEO, right? Maybe the CEO contributed, maybe Ben's liability is mitigated in that sense. But the core of the liability here is this video and the way it's all been presented. And let's face it, not everything Ben is doing in this video is honest, right?
No, it definitely isn't.
Like the part where he
I heard he wants to pretend on that one.
He wants to pretend that Amanda, the store manager, signed a contract that says they can't call the police. And all she signed for was receipt of a box. I mean, that's not signing a contract. She wasn't aware.
Yeah, for the record, I don't know what was said in chat, but I said that was a void contract and unenforceable.
I don't even know. Did they Photoshop? Because when she signed on the phone, she thought she was signing for the package. That was probably the document.
Exactly what it was.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's at least.
But obviously, that's not a signing of a contract, right? There's no meeting of the minds. She has no idea she's signing any such thing.
Yeah, that's like basic fraud. I think it was titled fraud in the execution, which I've never heard of before, but it's just fraud and it's completely unenforceable. So I don't know if someone in your chat thought that I said that it was enforceable, but it definitely is not. The other thing that's interesting is I think they're suing, BAM is suing under the Lanham Act for the whole "we steal from old people" hashtag bricks and minifig.
Right.
Which is going to be an interesting argument. Is that under the First Amendment protected as sort of like a parody, or does it really legitimately, fall within the Lanham Act? The other thing that I cautioned Ben about is that in his prior videos, he shuts down stores and he basically advertises himself as like, we shut bad businesses down. Like, that's my whole deal. So if those come into play as sort of like, well, here's his motive, we know what it is because he does it in all of his videos, that could be bad for him, especially under the Lanham Act.
Well, he's pretty explicit in this video. He wants to damage the business.
Yeah.
And in fact, not only all the destruction to the value of the corporate, but he literally obliterated the local franchise store.
Right. He did. Although apparently it's been struggling, right? It was struggling when Crystal and Ben owned it. Did the same struggles continue? I mean, I don't know what their sales were. I don't know if
it doesn't help when Reckless Ben is outside your store proclaiming to the world that you steal from old people.
Yeah,
right. That's not going to help business.
No, it's not. So your entire focus is on, did Bricks and Minifigure actually steal from old people? Right. That's your focus of this.
Yeah.
See,
and by the way, I'll concede the possibility they could very well be legally liable here for the cost of whatever Legos are not accountable for. But that doesn't destroy your business reputation, right? That's just something that needs to be settled.
But again, I would go to the common parlance is steal. Legally, it's conversion. It's unjust enrichment. It's all these technical things that we have. But to the common person, they stole from me. They stole my father's Lego. And I would also say that the $200,000 in that story is essentially the name of the set, right? It was advertised as a $200,000 Star Wars Lego set. That's what we're selling. And so when that's used in the title, I would say that that's the name of the set, not that there was actually $200,000 worth of Lego stolen, because everyone admits, and even in the video, I'm fairly certain they admit that a lot of it, or at least some of it, was sold, and things like that. So I would say that that's sort of a moniker for the set as a whole.
Well, sure,
rather
but
than-
they say several times throughout the video that X amount of dollars. It's always a big dollar amount. It might be 100, it might be 120, but they're saying they stole, 6 figures worth of property from us.
Well, but I think that that's a fair argument. Did you see the spreadsheet, the list of product?
I did see it. It's very long. I
very
was
long. So
skeptical about the value of all this, but they certainly had it out piece by piece. I guess that's what that stuff is worth. I don't know.
Well, let's assume that was the actual addendum to the consignment, right? And so this is the numbers that everyone agreed to. On the high end, I put it into an Excel spreadsheet and added it up. On the high end of what it could be sold for, these products, it's $248,000 or something like that. On the low end, it's like $180,000. And they give these ranges of in the document itself what they could be sold for. They also have a category for the ones that had been sold, and it looked like, and I might be off on the numbers, but around $29,000 or so had been sold. So if we take the high end minus
how do we know that? How do we know how much had been sold?
Well, it's just listed in the document. We have to trust the document is what it purports to be, right? We don't have any other information to go off of.
No, but I'm wondering if the document was generated, I don't know, a month before the franchise was seized, and a month later, it's more stuff may have been sold.
Right? Yeah, and that's true. I can even give that margin. But if you take the high end and you take the product sold, at least marked on the sheet, without, and it does seem like Crystal did sell product and hadn't paid Brian yet. So your statement is probably true. That stuff was sold and it probably wasn't marked up on the list. But it's around 200,000. Now, that's just the value, right? And then 65% of it is only what Brian gets. So that takes the number down even more. But if we're talking about the value of this, I don't think $200,000 as a value marker for the product is outside of the realm of possibility. I don't think that's going to be like the thing that hangs Reckless Ben or anyone else that's talking about this. I think the thing that's going to, damage Reckless Ben the most, if anything, is, for lack of a better term, the constant bereavement of the store. Like you said, he's constantly going in there with his friends and stuff like that. I think that might
the harassment, the stalking, the nuisance stuff, intentional infliction of emotional distress. That's probably Amanda, right? She was probably losing her mind every time Ben walked up to the store.
Well, but here's the thing, though. They have to prove that. I'd love to get into this discovery and see the financials, because if Crystal and Brian were struggling and there was a prior store owner that they bought it from, all indications are that it wasn't the healthiest store. And then so were the new franchisees owners also struggling. Are you going to be able to tie it to Reckless Ben as much as,
I think I saw the store. The store was owned by corporate when Crystal bought it. Crystal didn't buy it from a prior franchise owner, but maybe corporate had seized it from a prior franchise holder. I don't know.
Maybe I heard that it was open.
She was an employee there.
She was an employee there, and she was a manager there. That's what made me think that it was another franchisee owner. But maybe it was corporate. To my knowledge, corporate doesn't own any of the stores. They are all franchised. Now, I believe the CEO owns a franchise. But I think they're all, or at least he did at one point. I think they're all franchises. So I don't know. Is he liable for shutting down the store? I don't know. But to answer the original question, like who stole the Legos? I say Josh, the second franchise owner, the new franchise owner. I think they.
And that could be, right?
I think
that
it's clear conversion and unjust enrichment. They didn't buy that stock. If they paid corporate for the inventory, they were buying. They were paying for stuff that they didn't have a right to, and then exercising control over the things that they didn't have a right to, and then selling the things that they didn't have a right to sell. That is conversion. That's exercising control over it.
Okay, so let's hypothesize this. Let's pretend Josh and Brandon are acting in good faith, right? They're sent in as employees of corporate to seize the store. They're there for a few months, and then they decide they're going to buy the franchise. And when you're buying the franchise, you're buying things like the inventory. What if they don't know how much of this stuff is consignment, if any of it is consignment? They just don't know that this is Brian Mansell stuff. They think they're buying legitimate inventory. There's no UCC filing on any of this Mansell stuff. So even if they looked, there wouldn't be a record on file for any of this. And they're making a good faith purchase of the inventory. Do they now own it as good faith buyers?
I would say, first of all, they have a duty to do due diligence, right? Would you agree with that? They have a duty to do some sort of due diligence.
So what would that look like?
Well, that would be looking at the inventory and looking at what they're actually going to be purchasing. And
but how would they know, right? You got a shelf, the whole store is full of stuff, right? Of Lego stuff.
Right.
How would they know what's a Mansell consignment item?
Well, again, I'm going based off of now Crystal's statements in that short clip that you said. And she seems to be saying, I need to take the tickets with me. And I'm assuming tickets are like some sort of receipts or something like that, so that I know how much to pay this guy. And when she leaves, that paperwork is still sitting there. And this is one of the guys that's eventually going to buy it with Josh. I keep forgetting his name. So
Brandon, I think.
Brandon, yeah, maybe. So I would say that they have a conversation. We have consignment. Here are the tickets. I need to know how much I pay him. I need to take this. And they say, that's going to be a business thing that's going to stay here with the franchise. And she leaves all the paperwork. Doesn't that give them notice in your mind that, hey, maybe we need to go through this stuff and see exactly what's in the store?
I actually don't know. The video does not actually say she's talking to them about the Mansell consignment. I don't know what tickets she's talking about.
We have the original, or not the original, but like the unedited version. I think I have it somewhere.
I just have the piece from Ben Schneider's video where he embeds it. But of course, he chops everything up for aesthetic purposes. And
right. Let me see. Is this it?
Just like there's nothing in that recording. And people need to keep in mind, too, that Crystal lost this franchise because she was falling tens of thousands of dollars a month in arrears on royalties, on rent, and all kinds of stuff. And she's only had the business about a year and a half. And so she bought this business with aspirations of being a successful business person. Now she's losing her shirt on it. That would be a pretty powerful incentive for someone to be selling stuff on consignment, collecting the money, and deferring paying Brian Mansell because you have an enormous cash flow problem going on. And people will always tell themselves, hey, I'll catch up later and I'll make good at it. I'm just kind of borrowing the money for the moment. And then when it all goes sideways, she gets thrown out of the store. She can't make it up. And she's like, oh, I don't know anything about this.
Oh, I absolutely agree that Brian has a cause of action against Crystal. But I think the problem is from a fundamental standpoint. Crystal is living in Spain, from what I gather. So there's that whole thing. Then she doesn't have the money because she's, doesn't have the money. I don't know what her husband makes, but, and presumably it's both of them. They said they're both owners. So maybe there's some money there, but then also she's a potential ally in a dispute against corporate and the new franchisee owner. So you don't want to necessarily make enemies with somebody who, maybe there's, 15,000 that she owes or 10,000 or 20,000 that she owes, but there was a lot more value in the Legos that were taken by franchise or by corporate that I really want to go after. So
she owed a lot of money. It was a lot. It was closer to $100,000 plus
legal
fees.
Sorry, I meant again. What she owed Brian, like how much did she
I see.
sell and not give him? Yeah. I pulled up the raw video. I don't know if it's going to be, if you can hear it. I didn't pull up the one with the subtitle, but this is the raw video without the music or anything. I don't know what we can glean from this, but let's take a listen.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we're both here. So that what she's printing off is previous records from cells.
Okay, so they say it here in the longer clip. All right, so he's explicitly on notice that it's the Mansell consignment then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That wasn't in the Ben Schneider version of this clip.
Right. And that's why I tried to share this with you. So you would have that idea, because again, I kind of knew the idea was going to focus around this debate anyways, or discussion we're having is going to focus around what did they actually know. And then if you combine that with Josh's statements to the police that we were sent in to clean up the place and effectuate the transfer, and we were basically operating it. He doesn't say on behest of corporate, but if it's not corporate, then who? Right?
No, it has to be. No, that for me, that changes a great deal. That couple seconds right there where he's clearly on notice that there's a man-cell consignment involved. He is there on behalf of corporate. He's acting as their agent. And while not everybody can bind a corporation, usually you need to be a senior level official. If he's there by corporate for the purpose of seizing the store, which I presume would involve doing an inventory, then I would say corporate's on notice. It doesn't mean the CEO personally is lying when he says, I don't know anything about this. There's lots of stuff that happens in my own house I don't know anything about. My wife is taking care of all that. But legally, I would say that, BAM Corporate, their agent sent for that purpose, is on notice about the inventory situation.
Yeah. And so that's where I
see if Ben Schneider were a lawyer, he would have made sure to include that extra few seconds of the clip. That
and not put music over it and like, your dramatic sound effects, right? But it wouldn't make the video as fun. I still love Reckless Ben's video. I think it's awesome. And he does all kinds of stuff that I would never advise anybody to do. But it was kind of fun watching. He's
a very talented guy and obviously very successful, right? I mean, 1 million subscribers. Last time I looked at it, at this video in particular, it was 3.5 million views. I mean, it's probably far more than that even now.
Well, what is his? It's got to be a lot. And I keep going back and checking. I actually recorded the whole thing, both parts, because with the TRO that he's facing.
In case it got taken down, I did the same thing.
What's it at now? Let's see here. It is 4.1 million views. 4.1 million views. That's amazing. That's a lot of views.
And by the way, the same stuff I said about Crystal, right? If she's deep in the hole every month, that I'm not saying she did this, but it would not be surprising. It would be consistent with human nature that it would be an incentive to, hold on to the consignment money longer than you're, legally permitted to do, and try to fill that hole and tell yourself that you'll make it up later. All those dynamics, if it's a store that's struggling, would apply to the new buyers too.
Yeah, and she admits in that video, I don't know when the payments, I didn't look to see when the payments are due under the consignment agreement.
It was every month.
Like, is there a particular date? Like, on the
I think it was like the 15th of the month. It was something like monthly and no later than the 15th, something along those lines.
Okay, because this is November 11th. She's being kicked out, and she's saying, "Well, I have to pay him. Like, I need these so that I know how much I need to pay him for the sales." So she's admitting that Brian hasn't been paid everything.
Or maybe she's saying, "I have to take this paperwork with me because I don't want anyone else to look at it."
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
Because if they look at it, they're going to see I sold a bunch of stuff that I didn't pay out the consignment money on.
Yeah, that's very true. But at the end of the day, it doesn't negate the legal argument. It just sort of makes her a little slimier. And also, like, she has every reason to kind of play with the truth a little bit in helping Ben, Reckless Ben, in his clips, and working with Brian and making her own statement. She has every reason to be fudging the truth a little bit. Because just like Andrew said, she could have been holding on to money that she shouldn't have been and should have paid over to Brian and then didn't have it. But that at the end of the day, the question is, who stole the Legos? I still say corporate, or at least the franchisees, because they were on notice.
But they're not the same things.
Well,
right, the franchisees and corporate are...
Corporate took over the store and apparently, according to Josh, operated it for 4 months before they sold it to Josh and Brian. So, and Brian is the one in that video. So he has noticed, as the new franchisee owner, that maybe not all that stock is there, yet they continue, or is Bricks and Minifigs, and they yet continue to sell it. Now, I don't know when, again, Brian said that he sent someone in to buy one of his sets and then take that to the police. I don't know if that's the 4 months that corporate was in charge, or if that was when the new franchisee owners had taken over. So that
and
we're
I would
missing
suggest
a ton of information.
From a public perception matter, I think it's different. It's different if the CEO was made aware that they had come across this treasure trove of Legos they had no legal right to possess, and he just said, "Screw it, just keep them, make them sue us for it." Right? That's a certain degree of malice there. I think that's different than if the CEO comes out and says, "Listen, we at corporate, we didn't know anything about this in actuality, but we're legally on the hook because those were our agents that did this bad thing, and we're going to be held responsible for it." There's an absence of malice there on the part of corporate.
Right. But again, going back to conversion and even unjust enrichment, you don't have a malice requirement.
No, not in the law. I'm talking about the public perception of the business.
Absolutely. So from a moral perspective, I think the way corporate and even the new franchisee owners acted, even the old franchisee owners acted, was morally wrong. And I think
so. What did corporate do that you think is morally wrong? Like, they may not have actually known, right? We're imputing knowledge to them based on legal theories, which may be the correct law. But what did they actually know that they were stealing? They were unlawfully converting Brian Mansell's collectibles? Did corporate know that? I mean, the actual corporate, right? Not the imputation through their agents, but did the CEO as a human being know that he was wrongly converting Brian Mansell's Lego collectibles?
Well, if we're talking about that narrow focus, then I would say no. The CEO,
because if he knew, it would be pretty bad, right? Then he'd be a scumbag.
Right. Yeah, then he'd be a scumbag. We don't have any evidence that he did know, but we also don't have any evidence that he didn't know. But so from that narrow standpoint, I think the CEO has done a lot worse stuff, especially things that came out in the body cam videos, which is amazing that the CEO is on speakerphone talking to the cops. But that's a whole different thing. But the CEO coming out to meet Reckless Ben in the hallway, and no, he didn't do anything that was morally wrong that we have proof of with regard to the Star Wars Lego sets. The CEO did not. I will concede.
I mean, he could have, but we don't have any evidence of that, right?
Okay. Exactly. Now, what I think he did wrong from a public-facing entity sort of thing is, first of all, step out in the hallway with some random kid that's asking about Star Wars Legos, right? He shouldn't have done that. I think he made a lot of bad PR moves, right? And
he's not a good CEO.
No, he is not.
He made a lot of missteps that are going to cost his company a lot of money.
He did. He absolutely did. And then the other thing too, which is interesting, is that he sent a prospective franchisee owner to go do the transfer of a franchise to corporate. I think that's a lot of that's just bad management to begin with.
Do we know that though? I mean, we know that the people he sent eventually became the franchise owners, but was that being contemplated by the parties when they were sent there to clean out the store?
You know what? That's true. I don't
because
know.
I think that would be a bad idea. Obviously, there's too much conflict of interest involved in it.
The reason why I bring it up is because the CEO said in an interview on a Lego channel that that they're now have a new policy where they bring in third parties to do the inventories upon, foreclosure or closure of franchise stores and things like that. They're basically getting an auditing firm, which they probably should have done from the beginning. Don't get your buddies that live 10 minutes down the road from you, whether or not they intend to buy the franchise, and send them out to Oregon to do the inventory. Unless that might have been their day job for the last 10 years, but it doesn't sound like that's what it is. The guys who owned the store, or at least the one of them, Josh, owned like a asset protection firm called Legally Mine LLC or something along those lines. So he's not in the business of running these stores, or at least working for corporate, it sounds like.
He
So-
seemed to think he knew a lot more law than he actually did. That's for sure.
We did a little bit of deep diving on this company, and they apparently got admonished by the Ohio Supreme Court just in December of 2025 for unlawful practice of law.
Or yeah, okay. So he's not an attorney. He's doing asset protection, right? So he's giving
Yeah.
people legal advice on how to. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
plan.
there's a lot that's going on like outside of this. But if we're going to narrow the focus, and that's what you need to do, like when we're doing these legal analysis, if we narrow the focus, at the time the franchise was shuttered, corporate took over, the Legos are still there. Brian's calling saying, "Hey, where are my Lego?" Did the CEO know what was going on? There's no evidence that he did. I'll concede that point. So is he the bad guy that stole this Lego? No, I still put it on Josh and Brian. I think they're really the really bad guys in this. And if you notice in Reckless Ben's second video, he's not suing corporate. He's suing Josh and Brian personally, as the owner of the Lego. He's not suing corporate. As if Reckless Ben,
Who's not suing? Is
Reckless Ben
Brian?
Reckless Ben bought the Lego from Brian. So now Reckless Ben is acting as owner of the Lego, and he's suing Josh and the other guy. I keep forgetting his name. The other
Brandon Best.
Brandon. Thank you. He's not suing corporate. He's suing who I presume he's saying stole the Lego, right? Because that's the focus of his story. So he's saying he's not saying corporate stole. He's saying Josh and this other guy stole.
Right, because Crystal's story is they threw me out of the store. I left all of Brian's stuff back there when they threw me out. They were in possession of it. So if anyone took it, if any of it's missing, that's on them.
Yeah. And I think those are the baddest of the actors. I think they're the ones that, like I said before, I think they're the ones, if we're talking about stealing as a layman term for a conversion and unjust enrichment, it's those two guys. If we're talking about breach of contract, it's Crystal. And at the end of the day, I think corporate is going to be liable and going to be footing the bill. That's
hey, I got a bunch of
take.
super chats here.
Oh yeah.
Holy cow, they're coming in. Hey, I got a new member. How about that? Bird Dog, thank you very much. Gito 463, $10. I would argue that consignment goods would not fall under that category. You guys have to be more specific. Given that it still belongs to the original seller and the consignment agreement contract should confirm that. I don't know what category you mean, man.
Are you talking about Article 9 of the UCC?
Inventory that the corporate would have a security interest in, a lien on? It's such a technical area of the law. I mean, my instinct would be it wouldn't be covered, but the UCC does complicated things.
Yeah.
Neo Sadist, $5. Hi, I hope you didn't hear a ka-ching just then, did you?
No, I did not.
No, okay. My sound box doesn't work when I have a human being on with me. Hi, I hope you're very familiar with this case, so you can call out Branka on anything false. Feel free to call me out on anything false. He did a bit on this case and was wrong on tons of stuff.
I think that's on my end.
One thing I saw is very interesting to me is that it was my perception that people were watching a clip of video and then kind of injecting into that video what they wanted it to be. Right. So, for example, that clip I played where we had Brandon Best in the store when Crystal's being thrown out, he's got the blue jacket on. There's a voice on the speakerphone saying certain things, right?
Right.
People are watching that and saying, well, that was Brandon, the guy physically present in the blue jacket who was saying those things. But it's not him. It's some unknown person on the speakerphone saying
Oh,
that.
yeah, it's clearly off on a phone. Yeah, you can
Right.
tell.
But people keep telling me, no, he knew about the consignment stuff because he's saying it right there in the video clip. Although in fairness, maybe they were looking at the video clip you have, not the one that was in the Ben Schneider video.
That's been circling for about 5 days, 6 days or so. At least that's when I got it. So I don't know how, when people saw it.
And then there's a part in the video when Ben is talking to Josh over the phone and he says, so you still have Brian's Legos, right? And Josh responds, why would you think you're entitled to my inventory? And then as a narrator, Ben says, well, at least he confirmed he still has Brian's Legos. Well, that's not what he said.
Let me push back on that.
But people hear that, and now people are telling me, no, Ben talked to Josh, and Josh confirmed he still had Brian's Legos.
Let me push back on that because there's a later part And when he says, I will give Brian back his Lego if he apologized. And we have it all here, and it's still here. There is a part where he says
but I
that
think
on
there's
the phone.
context there that's missing. I think what Josh, and I don't know if Josh is telling the truth, but if I'm going to pretend that I'm giving Josh the benefit of the doubt, what I heard him saying is, listen, when we came in, there was stuff we don't know whether or not it's Brian's. It might be Brian's, we're not sure. And if we were unsure, we set it aside. And anything that's his, we'll give him. But that's not the same thing as saying we know we have his property and we're going to give it to him. Those are two different things.
Yeah, I could argue both ways on that.
Let's see. Okay, already covered that one. J6, $5. This story involves a mustache swirling CEO, a radical leftist with devil horns, and a YouTuber. I can't tell who is worse. Andrew, $5. Technically, Brian has been made whole when Ben and his buddies all purchased the remaining Legos to be able to file their lawsuit in small claims. Did they purchase all his Legos?
They purchased $100,000 worth, but here's the thing. Brian lent them the money to do it. So Brian...
Well, they took the money out on credit cards. They got cash advances on credit cards.
Right.
And they gave the money to Brian, and then Brian gave them at least some of the money back so they could pay back the credit cards. It got very complicated.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is completely lawful, by the way. I mean, seller financing is a thing.
Michael Swade, $20. Thank you. BAM put out a blog post today claiming they found 3 sets of books. Oh, BAM, corporate. Yeah, I actually saw that. Maybe I'll pull that up.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah. It was just like an hour before we went live.
Let's see what they got.
Oh my gosh, did I lose it?
And thank you all. It's hard to distinguish between the super chats from Bronca's side and my side, but I do see them coming up. And thank you guys all for the super chats on my end.
See if you can pull it up. It was just today they released something.
Was this on their website?
I believe it was on their website.
Okay.
I had it, and I have so many windows open.
Let me see here. Oh, wait. First of all, Bricks and Minifigs parts ways with managers involved in viral video.
Which managers? Does that mean the franchise owners or?
I don't know.
The
I
CEO.
Just saw that. That was the first thing that popped up. Brandon Best and Joshua Johnson. Yeah, so those two guys, they parted ways with those two guys. So
right.
That's nothing new.
All right, so he says here, BAM put out a blog post today claiming they found 3 sets of books and a detailed accounting of Brian's entire collection. They're blaming Crystal for not disclosing, but the video shows her telling Brandon about it. Maybe it was a video, actually.
Let's see. So I have Bricks and Minifig parts ways with Salem, Oregon franchise owners. What we presently believe actually happened.
Oh, I have it. It's an interview he did. The CEO did 3 hours ago.
Oh,
I've got it. I've got it here. Let me go through these super chats and then I'll pull. Yeah. It's about 12 minutes long. I'll play it at 1.25 or something.
I'm good. I got time.
Because that was 3 hours ago that was posted up, so it's pretty recent.
Okay.
Let's see. Covered that one. Will Crump, $5. What about that CEO calling cops and falsely claiming the 2 boys had heroin in their car? Okay, so there's lots of stuff. We would be here for a week if we tried to cover everything. The bizarre behavior of the cops. Listen, there's something weird going on with this police department. It's not that uncommon in smallish towns for police departments to go sideways like this if something outside their normal operating procedures happens. But it's not appropriate.
No, it's not. And the female officer who is literally trying to convince Reckless Ben that Josh's side of the story is the right one was amazing to me. Why is an officer doing that? If you go back and watch that video, this is part 2, just that part alone, I'm like, what is going on here? That was the crazy part.
I did see a lot of weird stuff about because of course the company BAM Corporate's in Utah, so there's Mormons involved. And then there's police departments involved. And then there's a bunch of people who went to BYU and people were screaming, well, they went to BYU together and they're Mormons and they go to the same church and they live in the same town. So there must be corruption. Listen, there may be corruption. I mean, there's some weird stuff, but it's not proven by the fact that they went to the same college, have the same religion, go to the same church, and live in the same town. I went to college with 10,000 people. I'm not in a corrupt relationship with all of them. I mean, that's
say,
silly.
Yeah, people were pointing that out during my live stream. And I was of the position that I feel like this is more of a small town, local cops, local residents, and some weird out-of-town YouTuber that's harassing a local resident. That's more likely what it was than the religion.
And let's face it, he was being harassing, right? I mean, he's doing it for entertainment value, but
yeah.
And no one would want to be the subject of a Ben Schneider video.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Does it rise to a level of criminality, though? That's the issue.
Yeah, I don't. The law gets very specific about this kind of stuff, and of course, cops. There's nothing cops love as much as being able to throw around disorderly conduct. It's like the blank check for charging people. I just don't like what you're doing. Basically, is what it means.
Yeah.
Saw you call out the original owner on Twitter. Appreciate the attention to detail because a lot of people are just ignoring that potential. On top of the new owners having product posts. I think he means I was talking about Crystal. Like maybe she's not pure as the driven snow here. I don't know that she did anything wrong. I'm just saying I've seen people in these circumstances before, and sometimes people start cutting corners. Me, $5. BAM is suing GoFundMe to freeze the funds in the campaign. I guess that must be the GoFundMe for Ben, right?
Oh, yeah.
It will be seized by BAM to cover Ben's judgment. Well, first you have to get a judgment. There's a long way to go here.
Right.
Ben won't see a dime. I don't know.
I mean, and I don't think from a GoFundMe standpoint, if BAM is successful, I don't think they get to keep the money. I think it goes back to the donors.
Right.
I can't imagine BAM gets to keep the money when donors are there donating money to
in the belief that he's not liable for anything, right? There was no misconduct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Me, $5. Ben will not make a second GoFundMe. He'll be banned on there. I guess me is not a Ben fan, is the sense I'm getting. Here's another one, a whole bunch of them. Hopefully BAM wins this case and teaches Ben a lesson. Extortion is a crime. Listen, I want to make clear, too, I have no vested interest in any of these people. I'm not trying to defend any of them. I'm just trying to get a better sense of what the truth might look like here. None of these people are friends of mine. None of them are family. I don't give a damn what happens to them as long as it's consistent with the law. So I'm not, of course, if you take a side that people don't like, you're automatically some kind of bootlicker.
Well, the other thing I will say is that BAM has made a public statement, not BAM, I'm sorry. Reckless Ben has made a public statement that in every single one of the videos that he's done, he's been sued. Except for one when he went after a call. So this is not like, Reckless Ben is not unsophisticated. You should be able to tell that from the video. He knows the right the buttons to push. He knows enough to maybe keep himself out of trouble to some extent. He's not completely unsophisticated. He's not this goofy little 20-year-old just running around there. He knows what he's doing. That's my take on this.
Yeah, all I can say is my YouTube channel doesn't have 800,000, 900,000 subscribers, unfortunately. So, Twisted Puppet OG, $2. BAM found out she did hold back money. Crystal did hold back money. That's what they're saying. We're going to play their CEO's clip from earlier today in just a minute. Me, again, $5 got to GoFundMe up to 800,000. Ben is going to need it to pay judgment. It'll be frozen by the court. Okay, all of that is theoretically possible, I guess. Mr. Drew Magoo, $5. Can you comment on the Utah tyrant in black robes signing an ex parte order requiring Ben to remove his content from all platforms?
Prior restraint on that TRO.
They're talking about the TRO.
Horrible. I don't know how a judge signed that from my standpoint. I mean, if we look at the context of prior restraint.
Is it prior, though? I mean, it's published.
Well, but it's also saying all future posts. He cannot
that's prior, right?
Yeah, that's prior restraint, and then he must take down the ones that are already published, and then the order compels platforms to take it down. And I don't know if you saw the Patreon CEO or president of Patreon. He did.
I did, saying he wasn't going to do it. Did it? I mean, he's not even a party to the case, right?
Right.
So,
that's the point that I think he was trying to make. He's like, sue me if you want. Yeah, but so I think it was extremely
issue an order with my name on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the last part of it is not going to stand the test of time. The rest of it probably is. Don't show up at people's doorsteps dressed as UPS worker, things like that. That's probably going to stand the test of time. But the don't publish any videos, take down all the videos you have published about this, that I don't think is long for this world. Also, there's a hearing set for June 22nd. It's at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Utah time. I'm going to try to stream it live if I can. Utah courts have had cameras and stuff in the courtroom before, so I'm going to try to stream it live because I kind of want to hear the arguments on that.
Okay. Yeah, prior restraint of speech, if you don't know, is about the least likely thing to get out of a court or upheld if it's done and appealed.
Yeah,
goes right to the core of the First Amendment. Excited utterance, 10 Australian, two of my favorite people. Nice to see you both. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. It's been too long. Hey, Sean, potentially criminal, $10. Have you discussed the Mansells agreeing to gamble $100,000 on a consignment contract that looks like it was written by ChatGPT? If only they spoke to an attorney before risking serious money. Yeah, folks, you always have to think. I mean, lawyers are expensive and they're not pleasant to deal with. I'll concede that point. But if you're talking real money, you have to protect yourself. You don't know what you're doing. You're literally ignorant of how, especially commercial transactions.
This is
and I don't mean ignorant in a derogatory sense. I mean, you literally don't know.
Well, this is a perfect example of how sometimes what you don't know can get you into a lot of trouble. If they had contained some language in there regarding closure of the franchise, looping in corporate, getting corporate signature on this thing, the UCC filing, all these sort of protections that they could have added to this thing that would have made their position so much stronger, but you don't know what you don't know. And I also say, like, attorneys are like insurance. You don't want to have to deal with us, but sometimes we're your best friends when dealing with this kind of stuff. So you pay a little bit up front and you could save yourself this sort of headache.
Yeah, I remember there was a line, I think it was in the consignment agreement. It might have been in the franchise agreement. I think it was the consignment agreement, but basically it said, future parties are bound by this agreement, just like a single sentence. I'm like, well, how do you do that? They didn't sign this document. They're not agreeing to be bound by it. I think the most you could do is you could say, like, if they were trying to bind a future franchise holder, and Crystal fails to include that as part of the transfer, but I don't see how a contract between two parties can somehow automatically bind a future party. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me.
It's paragraph 10, and there's two sentences, and they conflict with each other. The sentence 1 says the agreement shall be binding on all successors of the parties, period. Sentence 2 says neither party shall have the right to assign its interest in this agreement.
Okay, right.
It's like, okay, well, those conflict.
All right. 5. Oh, me again. Ben is not a serious person. I recommend talking to lawyers before committing crimes, not afterwards. I recommend not committing crimes. $10. Have you changed Branca's mind yet? Hey, that's a great point. So I should touch on that again. That broader clip from inside the store when Crystal's being thrown out, where it's made explicitly clear that I guess it's Brandon Best is made aware of the Mansell consignment. That's the first evidence I've seen that there was any reason to believe he knew anything in particular about the Mansell assignment until after he'd become a franchisee, and there was a big hubbub about it. If he knows about the consignment going in, then I think he's put on notice, and a minimum requirement of good diligence would be, all right, I got to know what stuff is in here that I actually own and what belongs to somebody else. So for me, that was a game changer. I mean, it didn't change my mind in the sense that it's new information, right? So new facts can result in a different legal analysis.
How about that? Critical thinking. It's a lost art these days.
I told you I was amenable to persuasion. Jeff, 10 Canadian dollars. Legal or not, the police and corporate reactions tell me something's wrong. It's all very strange in one direction. When you have personalities like a reckless man interacting with police officers, things go sideways. Cops are not used to being dealt with that way. I mean, just basically openly mocked, ridiculed. They're used to people giving them respect, and they function in that kind of environment. And when they encounter a rogue actor like a reckless Ben, they don't know what to do. And sometimes they overreact, and sometimes they do. I'm not defending the cops. They shouldn't be overreacting. But it's not uncommon to see things when you have a chaos agent, I'll call him that, like Reckless Ben, and you inject him into a little local police department. It's not a good combo.
You know what I was wondering? There's a lot of First Amendment auditors out there on YouTube. And I was wondering, because this is like the opportunity for some of them that want to sort of like cash in on this to go to American Fork, Utah. And I'm not telling anybody to do that. Do not go there and do not film the police and do First Amendment auditing stuff. I'm just wondering if there are any, because I have to imagine there's one actually local to me that went by my office, and I was pissed that I missed him because I wanted to chit chat with him a bit. I'm just wondering if there's anyone out there, if you guys know of any First Amendment auditors that are like picking up on this, like, ooh, we can really cash in with these officers.
Well, of course, now that it's going viral, everyone's covering it, right? We're two lawyers from small towns, right? And we're both covering it. And everyone on the internet is covering it. And people who do this auditing stuff, yeah, if you want to do an audit video that gets you 1 million views instead of 100,000 views, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
Right? I'd go
American
talk to that
Fork,
police
Utah.
department, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. Yeah, exactly.
Neo Satis, $5 says, I'm now an ex-fan of Branca of many years. He has blown his credibility with his extreme ignorance about this case. It's all right, buddy. I already have an ex-wife, so I don't mind having an ex-fan. Hey, tell your mom I said hi. Oh, he's back. Another one. I always tell people, feel free to send in your insults. You just have to pay me. And he's doing it the right way. $5. Branca posted on X that the court docs Ben was serving were false. When on Ben's video, the cops even confirmed with the Oregon court that it's a real case. I didn't say anything was false. I said the notary public stamping them does not make them true. The notary public is not attesting to the truth of the claims.
Right.
It's just a stamp that someone signed her signature. She looked at the driver's license. She makes some notes in a book. I mean, most lawyers have been a notary public. We know how that works. But you don't even have to read the document. The substance of the document is irrelevant to the notary public.
All you want to do is
the other
make
thing
sure
is,
that the only thing, like I'm a notary public, and the only thing that I do is make sure that I identify the individual that's signing it, and that I watch them sign it, and then I do a little stamp, and I say, this person that I identified with this name signed this document. That's all I'm doing.
You wouldn't know if the document was written in Greek.
Yeah, I would have no idea. It doesn't matter to me. All I'm looking at is who is the individual that's signing this document. The other thing I wanted to say is with regard to the original small claims. Apparently, allegedly, what had happened was Reckless Ben sued the prior franchise, the business name, not the new one that existed at the time.
All right, so he sued Salem LLC instead of the what did they call it, Bricks LLC?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So then that's another thing I brought up. It's like they're doing all this goofy. He's having his buddies serve the papers, right? Well, there's rules about who can serve papers. So the service may not be valid. And as you say, they may not be going to the right person, so the right parties may not be put on notice. And then they, because they're not on notice, they don't show up to small claims court. You get a default verdict, but it's not going to be upheld.
It's against Crystal's business, and they're in Spain. So okay, that was the issue with the small claims thing.
And of course, we don't see these papers that they're handing people, right? He did the goofy thing with the contract that says you can't call the police on me and you have to pay me $5,000 every time you call the police. And then he has Amanda sign for a package, and she's unknowingly signing this document. I mean,
valid and binding. I'm going to try that now.
Right. Duty to read the contract.
I love how he says, in America, we have a law. I mean, some of the stuff he says is so cringe as a lawyer watching it, but it's just still so highly entertaining. It's like the layman's version of legal analysis.
Let's see. Josh Rowe says, $5. BAM put out a letter today. You want to look that up, David? BAM put out a letter today that separates Josh and Brandon. You just mentioned that. I guess separates them.
Yeah, I said that.
Offers all remaining sets, so Lego sets in Oregon. But of course, they've been doing that forever. But there's a dispute about what sets exist that could be returned. Compensates Brian I think Brian's been compensated.
Evidence of negligence uncovered. Brian Mansell and Crystal Law Gorman jointly valued Lego collection at $95,000 to $100,000 relating to their unauthorized consignment. Corporate takes action and reaches out directly to Brian Mansell again for informal something or other. Why can't I click on it? But that's
it would obviously be in everyone's interest to just do whatever's necessary to make this go away, rather than spend the next couple years in litigation.
It's so bad that they took until after Reckless Ben launched his video and it went viral for them to legitimately. I say legitimately. I don't know if they legitimately tried to resolve it ahead of time, but in me being in this practice for going on 17 years now, I can tell you that the likelihood that Bam lowballed Brian is fairly high.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, yeah.
And listen, it's also possible because they asked Brian, I think Josh did, hey, I'll return your Legos, but I want an apology letter, right?
Yeah.
And there's a clip of Brian saying, F them, I'm not going to write an apology letter. I mean, for all we know, by that point, Ben had told Brian, listen, don't worry about anything. I'm going to get you the money for the Lego set. You'll be made whole. Well, once Brian's made whole, why would he write an apology letter? And then I would also say, F you, right? I got my money, right? Ben took care of me. So.
And it's very well, there was a statement from the CEO that Reckless Ben reached out to Brian and offered to pay him and then exchange for some money back. And in theory, if you guys don't know how like Judge Judy and all that stuff works, those people, they farm small claims actions and they say, plaintiff, whatever you're seeking, we're going to pay you. And defendant, whatever judgment goes against you, you don't have to pay for it. We're going to cover it and just go on the show. And there's nothing untoward about that. And that's national television that gets sent out there. It could be the very same thing with Reckless Ben. He could have gone to Brian and say, hey, you're out 100 and something thousand. Here you go. Here's the cash. Let me tell the story. Let me do all this stuff.
Well, that's an interesting point, right? So if Ben has bought out Brian's interest, so Ben's now the party, what interest does Ben have to settle anything? I mean, he's going to make 2 years of programming out of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially if he thinks, obviously if you knew you were going to lose, you'd want to get out of it because there's a lot of money at stake. But if he's talked to his lawyers and they'll say, no, we got a pretty good shot at this. That's 2 years of content.
Yeah.
2 years of 3-4 million view videos. I mean,
curious to see why you're pulling up the others.
Pooping while standing. That's an interesting handle. Nick Shirley, Sorter, and Reckless Ben for Doge. Okay. Love Kit 1014 $5. If corporate reabsorbs the franchise, don't they also take over prior debts and contracts? Not just inventory. I mean, that gets complicated, right? They don't just assume every debt that Crystal Law has.
No, they don't. What it says in the franchise agreement, and I hadn't read all of it, it's like 48 pages, but the parts that I was able to read and pull out and sort of pinpoint and focus on says that anything of value, corporate can put a lien on and take to offset any cost that's outstanding. But all the other liability is 100% on the company that Crystal and Ben own. And so that's all on them. They don't have to absorb that or take that. That's sort of the trade-off. I wanted to look at this. So he posted a video 11 hours ago, and it's where he's breaking down, he's splicing in the the police Reckless Ben.
Okay.
That's got 2 million views already. He posted it 11 hours ago. So like you said, he has years of 4 million view videos coming out.
And I know part of the suit by BAM against Ben is asking for disgorgement, meaning that Ben would be compelled to give up whatever revenue he made on the chances of getting that kind of thing are really infinitesimal.
Well, that's more in line with like if you stole somebody's creative work and you're selling it as your own.
Yes,
that's where you would get that. That's not what's happening here.
Right.
That's
so
not
if he
a realistic
stole
damage.
Bricks and Minifigs trademark and opened up a website and was selling stuff, they might say you've taken advantage of our trademark to make money. We want that money. That's ours. But that's not what's happening here. This is his own creative product. Is insulting you the only way you'll bang my mom? I'm happily married, man. I'm not actually going to bang your mom. Don't worry about it. She's what do they call it?
She's
Marked safe from attorney Andrew Branca. Neo Sadist, $5. You're confused and wrong again, Branca. The notary public issue was in Oregon. The court docs you referenced were in Utah. Okay, I just saw a notary public stamping documents in the back of a vehicle. Whatever she was stamping, all it does is verify the signature of the person who signed it. It's got nothing to do.
Technically, those documents are applicable in Utah as well, because there's a new suit in Utah against them individually, and Reckless Ben's ownership interests are those very documents that Bronk is talking about. So, Neo Sadist, you're wrong.
A member for 10 months. Super chats work. If David doesn't respond to mine, I want my money back. Did we miss yours?
No, we pulled it up. It was that was Wendy H. She's my co-host on my Lego streams.
Oh, okay. All right. Arian the vegetarian. People are so creative. I love humans. $10. I just visited my home state, Utah, to report my child's registered SO dad. What's SO?
Oh, wow.
Significant other dad? I guess they're never married. Okay. Significant other dad for 2+ years of unapproved, unsupervised communication, secretly sending $900 a month, getting an apartment set up in American Fork. That's in quotes. I'm not sure what you're trying to say there. If anybody wants to start sending me $900 a month, by the way, feel free. It's fine.
I'm down for it.
Arian, the vegetarian, for him to leave Texas at the start of his senior year, become truant, lose his baseball scholarship, I'd reported to the police officer. The lieutenant did what PD did. No, okay. I'm not sure you're in the right show, my friend.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about.
I want outdoors, $10. Branca, could stand your ground be applied to a tree house if you're living in it? Yeah. You have to understand. I gave him a castle doctrine answer, but stand your ground just applies anywhere you have a right to be, generally speaking.
He's mentioning it because I stream from a tree house. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, see
all right.
my tree house sign here.
But castle doctrine, which is like a kissing cousin of stand your ground, would apply anywhere that is even transiently where your dwelling is. So when you're home, of course, that's your castle. If you're in a motel room for the night while you're staying there, the motel room is your castle, not the common areas. The hallway is not part of your castle, your transient castle.
Since my tree house is not a common element, this is my private domicile, it would apply here.
If you're living there, you'd have to say you're living there. Like if you have an RV, right? You have an RV, when it's parked in storage, it's not a castle. But when you're using it to camp out of, it's your transient castle. If you're in a tent and you're camping, that tent is your castle for castle doctrine purposes while you're living in it. A man, $5. Have you seen the leaked police cam videos? I haven't, folks. I got to be honest. This is kind of a funny topic to cover. I'm not sufficiently interested to watch 500 hours of video on it. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to watch all the body cam videos. It's
all I've been watching for the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
I did see them, and that actually, so the clip where he talks about that he ran it for 4 months and then decided to purchase the franchise, that came from those leaked clips.
If anybody has something they think is important from one of those, feel free to send me the clip and a timestamp, and I'll look at it. But I'm not going to watch 24 hours of body-worn camera video to see 3 minutes of something interesting. I don't have the kind of bandwidth for that. Wendy H10, $2. Neo Sadist, come on our side. Okay. Volt Fox member for 14 months. 14 months. Wow. Did this to make Branca read. And let's see. Will Crump, how you doing, Will? $2 says, registered SO means registered saxophone offender.
Yeah,
all right, yeah, fair enough. Okay. It's not a circle I normally run in. All right, you want to watch that 12-minute video with the CEO?
Yeah. Let's check it out.
Okay, let me pull that up. Whoops, that's not it. Oh my God, I'm so bad at this stuff. People come here for the production value, David, as you can tell. Let's see.
Streaming is hard sometimes.
All right, a franchisee went rogue, and this is on Fox 5.
Oh wow, so he's on.
Well, I guess it's a local Fox station that the DC network picked up, probably. It says Fox Local here on the left, but
okay.
All right, let's give it a Listen, I am going to bump it up
this
to
teenager that's interviewing him. This
it's unbelievable, right? That's the kid who should be mowing my lawn right now. Let's see. Playback speed, I'll do 1.25. I'm from New York, so everyone sounds like they're talking slow to me all the time anyway.
Oh yeah, I watch everything on at least 1.5. Oh, it's quiet.
Whoop, it's quiet. Let me bump it up.
On the whole situation and a new statement released by the company. Ammon, thank you so much for joining me.
Yep, you bet.
All
here
right,
we
so
go.
first, let's get to the pending litigation against.
So for those who don't know, probably everyone does, this is the CEO of BAM Corporate, Bricks and Minifigs Corporate.
The original kind of owner of this collection, Brian Mansell. Is Brian named in a lawsuit that was brought forth by Bricks and Minifigs?
Yes, he's named as a party to the lawsuit that is going after the individuals who published, like the false statements regarding the situation that's gone on in Salem, Oregon, and we're trying to work through that.
And that individual, is that the YouTuber who made the videos?
Yes.
Okay, so a comment I see reoccurring a lot is that this suit must be expensive, must take a whole effort from a large company. Why go this route instead of, as people say, try to just settle Brian's collection and move on and make everyone forget it? Was that ever an option?
Oh, we've been working to try and work with Mr. Mansell for a good little while. We've asked for documentation as far back as a year ago, but we continue to reach out to try and get towards a resolution with the Mansell family on this matter.
And have you and Mr. Mansell ever talked directly one-on-one?
Not as of yet. I have sent direct messages to the Mansell family and to Mr. Mansell specifically, seeking to have a sit-down meeting, meet at the table, and go over all the documentation that we have and to be able to talk through. And from our side of things, if they're, like...
Hey guys, someone just commented that I'm ignoring Rumble again. My apologies. I'll go check Rumble, okay? And we'll hit the Rumble rants too.
Have been any missteps through the transition of the store? We want to make things right. We want to do what's right by the customer. But all we asked for was documentation, and every time we asked for that up to this point, we seem to kind of then lose the connection.
So you've offered Brian the inventory of sets that was in the store.
Yeah, whatever was left over, we've offered that on multiple occasions. And then, like if there was anything that had been done that was untoward by the previous franchisee, if that individual had sold more than they let on and did not pay Mr. Mansell, we've offered to compensate him for the loss of the compensation that should have been given to him. So we've tried to make multiple offers, and hopefully we'll be able to get them to the table so we can discuss it.
As far as offering,
so he's saying they would make them whole, right? Is what they're offering to do.
Yeah, are those documents in the lawsuit? I didn't see that, and why are we not seeing them?
Which document did he mention? I was looking at.
Well,
something.
he just we made offers to give him back the sets that we had on hand, and then pay him others, and we've been doing it for a year. I don't remember seeing that in the complaint or anything like that. Not that it would necessarily need to be, but why are we not obviously?
I haven't seen those offers. The complaint does mention that they attempted settlement.
Right. But there's nothing specific. And obviously what I'm assuming the CEO is trying to play damage control, right? And
right.
Why would he not say, look, here is the letter that we sent back in 2024 or whatever, to resolve this? I don't know. If those things existed, I'd be blasting them. Right.
Yeah. And certainly I would be even here, I would be very specific, right? I'd say, listen, we reached out to him in March and May and July of 2025, and we just were never able to get something done. They have a lot of damage to repair here, right?
Right. That's not my point.
Damage.
Like I'm thinking about it. Like if I'm trying to repair the damage, and my whole argument is, listen, this didn't need to go the way that it went, and it's not because of us. It's because of reckless Ben. Here are the legitimate, serious, good faith, make him whole again offers that were made throughout 2024, 2025, whatever, before these videos dropped. So this isn't on us, people, right? That's the kind of damage control that he should be doing, and you should be very specific.
Let me hit a couple of super chats here. Lazy LCH, $10. I really hope all this doesn't ruin Ben and Brian, but I think it will. After BAM is ruined because they had more money. Well, that's not the right way to look at it. But Johnny River 69, that CEO dork can never bang my mom. All right. Sean again, how much cumin does Ammon's mustache require?
A lot.
Arian, the vegetarian, says, I suggested earlier she might be on the wrong show. $5. She says, I'd probably agree I was on the wrong show if I wasn't already seasoned to you and your ways from years on Mercatus streams. Wendy H10, that's your Wendy. Sean, only he knows. That's fair. Only he knows. He doesn't come across as a particularly masculine gentleman. Anonymous, $5. Bam just did a press release cutting Josh and Brandon for negligence, offers to settle with Brian, drop suit. Please pull up, unable to send link in here. I think that's what we're watching, is he's going to mention that stuff.
That's what I was reading earlier. There is a blog post that was posted earlier today, and that's essentially what it says, that we've severed ties with Brandon and Josh due to the devastating social media campaign.
Do you have that handy? You want to share that instead of watching the video?
No. We can watch the video. I prefer the video over me reading something, but I'll send it to you in private chat. You can pull it up if you want.
Okay.
And Brian, the inventory, have you gone through the store, figured out what was part of his collection, taken inventory and shown him that inventory to offer that?
So again, as this situation unfolded, and as additional investigations have continued to evolve so we could find out where there was a miscommunication, there was some initial findings and discovery of hey, these seem to match some of the things that were being stated, but we don't have any indication otherwise. We were able to determine some other indicators later, and so all of those were set aside to say, hey, these may match. So let's set them aside in case, he can, we can work together. Those then were offered to him, and the initial offer was rejected. But then as we continued, we found additional documentation that shows where there were separate sets of books and spreadsheets being kept between, or from the former franchisee.
By the way, one thing that should be mentioned is I can't remember now what document I saw this in, but apparently one of the things Brian Mansell was concerned about was that this store, while it was holding his goods, while Crystal was still running it, had been broken into more than once. And he was concerned about the safety of his $200,000 Lego collectibles on consignment. And Crystal had begun moving some of that property into secure storage outside of the store, which would make it, I don't know, it's no longer inventory in the store when the store is seized. And I don't know whatever happened to that. I mean, that doesn't seem to me like something Josh would have gotten a hold of. Maybe. I mean, would Crystal give up her storage?
I mean, presumably if it's like in a private storage or sitting in her basement at her home, that's a very different situation than it still being at the store. And that that's interesting that's the situation, because in the first video, when Reckless Ben is talking about the fact that Crystal saves a lot of the security videos and then plays the clip, he shows like a bunch of security videos, and one of them is actually somebody, it looks like, breaking in through the front door. And I was like, oh, when are we going to hear about that? And then they never got to that. So
I noticed that. Right.
Yeah. Did you notice that too?
Interesting. Yeah. But I thought it must have been, because it's never mentioned again. So I thought it might have been a piece of, a video filler or something in the production process. But no, it might actually have been a break-in.
Yeah, and it might have been sort of part of the story, and maybe it was cut. I don't know, but it seems to be that there was corroborating stories seem to indicate that there were actually a lot of break-ins. And so the question of whether or not Ben's stuff was stolen by somebody else is completely on the table at this point. Or not Ben's, Brian's.
But if that happened, Crystal is on the hook. Because in the consignment agreement, it says she's responsible if there's shortages or stuff is stolen. She's committed. I mean, she would have insurance to cover that stuff, is the idea.
Presumably.
Let me hit a couple of Rumble rants here. Gito463, $5. One suggestion that hasn't been brought up is that perhaps the new franchise owners didn't report everything back to the corporate BAM. So that's a possibility, right? And that's something I've been thinking about. It's like, maybe, I don't know if they did this. I'm not accusing anybody, but if we hypothesize that the new franchise owners just came across all this Lego stuff and said, well, no one will know better, we'll just keep it for ourselves, and corporate never knew about it, corporate would be morally clean in terms of that conversion. It doesn't mean they're not legally liable for it. But it wouldn't be the kind of malicious conversion that ought to destroy a company's reputation.
Right. That's what I was thinking too. Or I was thinking like it's sort of like found money. Well, we have half the store isn't on the books. Corporate doesn't know. Right. That's
we'll just keep it.
Yeah, we'll just keep it. Found, it's just found money.
$5, Gito 463. I think SO means yes. We got that. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Just teasing you, Andrew. He's the one who said I was ignoring Rumble. We love you on Rumble even when you ignore us. Okay, well that's very kind of you, my friend. I appreciate that. Let's get back to the video here.
And so as those things have come to light, we've tried to share those with Mr. Mansell in hopes that he can see, like that we were not attempting in any way, shape, or form to withhold anything that we could verify, and that we do want to help him recover as much of the collection.
Right. That's the point he's addressing here, right? Whatever we might have done wrong, we'll make him whole, but we weren't acting with malice.
Right. And that's a fine statement to make from the beginning. Sorry, that's a fine statement to make from the beginning. But you already went on sort of a tirade, a little bit of a tirade, and pointing the finger at like Reckless Ben and his shenanigans. And we got you on body cam video. These guys need to be arrested and stuff like that. I don't know. It's all a mess.
Well, he's been spoken to by a lawyer now, is what's happened, right? That's what's happened. So, I can imagine, listen, you're the CEO, that first video we watched, right? When Ben Schneider first goes to his office, you got this goofy guy outside your office saying crazy stuff you don't know anything about. You react in a particular kind of way, and you don't know you're going to be hit with a 4 million view viral video that's going to destroy your company's reputation, right? So you're like, you're a punk. Get out of here. I don't know anything about this stuff. Go away. And not realizing it's all going to be captured forever on the internet. Then as things are falling apart and you're taking more and more heat and the damage is increasing, then you're talking to cops and you're expressing all your frustrations there, right? Maybe saying things that aren't completely true because you don't think anyone's going to check any of it. And then your lawyers talk to you and you start talking like this.
Yeah. Promotional, but the actual factual information shows that the value of the more realistic value of the collection was closer to about $100,000, which is what the documentation that we've been able to determine that both parties to that consignment agreement kind of had an understanding between each other that was the actual real value.
So you dipped a bit into this new statement, and this concerns the previous owner of the franchise on the Kaiser branch. So tell me a little bit about what you guys found.
So, our franchise operates on the buy-sell trade model for Lego. We love Lego and everything that it stands for. And so, but we know.
You think Lego Corporate has called them?
Lego Corporate made actually a public statement that says, this has nothing to do with us. We're not, just leave us out of it.
Interesting.
That consignment agreements can be very difficult. And so we make sure that in our operations manual, through all of our training, we train all franchisees that consignment is not part of our model. It's written into the operations manual. It's trained on. It's very explicit.
Bronco,
however, unfortunately, we had a franchisee go rogue. And
you say something, Dave?
Yeah. What's your thought on this? So there's been another former franchisee owner that seemed to confirm that the language in the franchise agreement authorizes consignments, but that their franchise manual says that there are no consignments without approval. In that scenario, which do you think would control?
I think both of them. I think a reasonable interpretation of that in combination is that if a franchise owner wants to do a consignment, that we're not prohibiting you from doing that, but it's got nothing to do with the franchise arrangement.
Okay.
Just like if a franchise owner wants to wear red sneakers, right? They're not going to prohibit them from wearing red sneakers, but that's got nothing to do with the franchise arrangement.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So in other words, you can do it at your own risk, but it's not part of our corporate model.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And now we haven't seen this
no, it should
manual,
say that,
by the way.
right?
Right,
I mean,
right.
A well-written agreement would say, hey, we're not going to prohibit you from doing consignments, but that's on you. That's a private arrangement between you and the consignor.
Since before the video went, because there's reference to it in the video itself, in the Reckless Ben video, their position has been consignments are not allowed, but they still have not produced the document that they say, this franchise manual that says that that consignment is not permitted without, corporate oversight. Again,
right. So they're withholding it. Right. They just quote the part that's favorable to them, right? Or at least the purported part that's favorable to them. They're withholding it, they say, because it's proprietary, right? It teaches you how to do their business model, and we only share that with franchisees.
I think McDonald's really started that. I don't think you're inventing the wheel, again, with the whole franchisee thing, but.
And enter into a consignment agreement without our knowledge or authorization. And then it appears that may not have been honored with the person that she had entered into that consignment agreement with. And then through other circumstances, we ended up retaking over that store. And in the shuffle, there appears to have been just some confusion as to how, why, and where some of this came about. And as we tried to figure that out, we started uncovering more documents, more information. And what we found was that there were 3 separate sets of records that were being kept that shows that Mr. Mansell was significantly underpaid by that former franchisee. And so we've been trying to make sure that we can properly do like a forensic accounting and make sure everything is being looked at properly so that we can work together to get that family resolution.
And we, for our part, will reach out to those parties as well. You mentioned a couple terms I want to get into. That the franchisee agreement was not honored. Does that mean you're saying Mr. Mansell was underpaid by the franchisee?
From what we can tell, yes. The documentation that we've been able to pull out from a couple of different sources indicates that more sets were sold than were reported to him, and from that unauthorized consignment agreement, but that the overall payments to him did not match what had been sold through the store under the previous franchisee.
Okay. You hinted at the
But that's
circumstances
consistent.
by which the franchise was taken over. Now, this, I'm sure, is the thing you've been asked a million times. Do you want to get into it all, that security camera footage? And you said...
By the way, you think Harvard Business School and Wharton are going to start a course on how to deal with YouTubers who approach your business?
I think they're about 10 years too late, but they need to, definitely.
In the new statement, I believe it is that Bricks and Minifigs did not know about this.
If I was wearing a bracelet made out of seashells like this kid on the left, I would throw myself off a building.
Man, shave before you go on, or just let it grow out. You got to pick a lane.
Consignment agreement at any point before that security camera footage was taken. Is that true?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so what does this change in terms of the case? If I'm a regular Bricks and Minifigs enjoyer, and I'm looking at all of these videos, all of this coverage, what would you want me to think now that I know that Bricks and Minifigs Corporate didn't know about the franchisee agreement before the change of hands?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is knowing that obviously this took place in 2023. And since then, we have been continuously working to tighten our oversight with our franchisees, make sure that we have more field agents capable of making more field visits and doing field audits to look at records, documents, things along those lines to understand what's really happening in each of the locations. So we've increased the oversight with our franchise system, and that is, I think, a really big and important part for everything, so that customers know that franchisees will be following the rules of the franchise system and providing better protections to the end customers when they come in.
All right, and just to wait a little bit into that, we have a couple Bricks and Minifigs in the...
Sorry, David, did you say something?
Yeah, that's what he said before, that we're like implementing new systems and things like that. Actually, Sean's got a super chat on mine. That makes sense, but I want to kind of comment on that. Sean, potentially criminal. I want to make this right as you still sue him. This is what I think from a strategy standpoint. If they can settle with Brian and release him from the lawsuit, then the innocent person and his elderly father are released and corporate did good. And then they continue the lawsuit against Reckless Ben and Crystal and those people. By the way, Crystal and Ben Goebel or whatever, Crystal's husband, they're like sort of named. They're in reserve. It was really weird the way they did that. They're like, these are 2 bad actors that we might bring into this lawsuit later, just putting you guys on notice, but we're not officially suing them yet. But I think that's what he's trying to do. I think that would be his goal, or at least his attorney's goal, right? Let's settle with Brian and bifurcate the bad actors.
Yeah, make the victim whole.
Yeah.
Hey, as long as we pause for a moment, let me catch up on these. So Quarterless, $5 says, Neo is right. Just checked your ex. You said the court docs they were trying to serve in Utah were false. You're a liar. Okay. How would I know if they were false? I didn't read them.
And I got to check your ex now.
Oh, well, maybe if I said it, I'm always happy for new evidence.
If it lives or dies on X, right?
It's fine. Listen, I don't claim to be perfect. I've made mistakes. If I made a mistake, I'll own up to it. Just send me the X link. Send me the link to X. You're paying money for these. Just put a link in it. The internet does not understand nuance, says Bompchus. More than one thing can be true at once. Yes, everyone appears to have done something wrong, but the only conspiracy seems to be between Ben and the Lego owner's son. Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by conspiracy. Obviously, they're working together cooperatively. Ben is leveraging the son for this content creation. That's certainly true. By the way, I did notice something in the chaos on all the interactions, all the bootlicker comments and all this kind of stuff. A form of argument that people who are emotionally committed to a position they can't rationally defend is what I call the laundry list form of argument. So they'll have like 5 reasons you're wrong, and they'll explain reason number 1. And you'll prove that it's mistaken. And then, well, I got reason number 2, and you'll prove it's mistaken. And 3, 4, 5. And after you've proven all 5 reasons mistaken, you know what they do? They cycle right back to 1, like you never talked about it before. Arian the vegetarian, I see your intellect beyond what some like to call sheer a-holery. She must be talking to you, David.
No.
Squab Bob, $5. Anyone else remember Snidely Whiplash from the Dudley Do? Yes, I do. Dudley Do Right, Rocky and Bullwinkle show. And Dark Schwartz Rising, $20. $20. Obviously, Ben did some dumb stuff that has landed him in trouble in Utah. But in your opinion, was the Utah police breaking any laws in their treatment of him? If you've already answered this earlier, well, here's $20. So I've only seen like a scintilla of police body-worn camera clip on this. I've seen stuff that looks sketchy as F. Now, I saw one where a cop is inside his patrol car saying he pulled him over to scare him a little bit. That's not a legitimate stop. I mean, that's just wrong. You're not allowed to do that.
There's at least 2. The warrant search is an interesting one because presumably they had a judge sign off on it, but the officer who signed it has to swear that the statements are true. And come to find out, the owner of the Airbnb that they were staying at, that purportedly said that they were discussing that they had stolen Legos, is also a friend of the cops and regularly trains with them and does, high stress shooting scenarios and things like that. So,
right,
what's the reliability of this Airbnb owner? Right?
Yeah, and listen. And I don't know that background. The search may have been legit or not. I would need more facts. But when I saw the body-worn camera footage of them serving that warrant, and the cops are armed with AR rifles over a Lego theft involving people from whom, listen, you may think Reckless Ben's an a-hole. I don't think any of us would want to be a subject of one of his videos. But there's nothing to suggest he's violent. I mean, why are you going in there with rifles? That's crazy. It's not a drug warrant.
Yeah, but that's their MO. That's how they've been trained with the owner of the
Airbnb, right?
Airbnb that they're raiding.
$5 CEO. We've been working trying to. Oh, the CEO says we've been working trying to give his Legos back for over a year. Ben's videos aren't 6 months old when he claimed not to know anything. The timing of all this gets very complicated, folks. It's very difficult from the way Ben produces his videos with lots of flashbacks to know what should have been the state of knowledge when people are are being shown of having made these statements. I'm willing to give the CEO the benefit of the doubt. When he was first asked in Ben's video about these Legos, he had no idea what he was talking about. He had no reason to believe certainly that BAM corporate possessed any of these things. They normally wouldn't be expected to possess that kind of inventory. Right. And then as everything gets fleshed out, you learn more and your responses differ. All right, back to this.
Area. A lot of people have seen this story and they are worried now. What are the steps that corporate can take to dissuade fears here? Is it taking legal action here?
I think the most important thing is to ensure that we are protecting our franchisees and that the safety of our stores is our number 1 priority. The safety of our franchisees, the customers, their families, everything. That's our number 1 priority. And so ensuring that people are held accountable for making false statements and like taking advantage of other people's circumstances in this matter. That's why we've taken the legal action that we have, is to hold people accountable. But at the same time, we're also willing to sit down and work through things and make sure that we can just take anything that is something that we can work together on. I think that will help us resolve any issues that we have, and if we can make sure that people know that we're not going to.
So the comments like this really get to me. So I said maybe the CEO didn't know anything at the time he said he didn't know anything, right? And someone says Brian had already been dealing with BAM Corporate before Ben even stepped in, Andrew. Both those things can be true at the same time, my friends. This is $100 million a year company. It's possible they called someone at corporate who was not very helpful. That doesn't mean the CEO personally is aware of the Brian Mansell Lego story.
Right. You can attribute, like, there's two different things I think people are conflating. You can attribute knowledge to the corporation, and then the CEO can still be ignorant of the information. And those two things can be true at the same time.
Right. And that information provided to the corporation can put them on the legal hook. And the CEO can still not be lying when he says, I have no idea what you're talking about.
To sacrifice the safety of our franchise locations, then that will, I think, help now and in the future.
So what are you asking Brian Mansell?
Well, our number one priority in this entire situation is and has been to ensure that anybody, including Mr. Mansell and his family, they are treated fairly. And so as we've gone through the documents and as we've looked at everything, our number one priority right now is to ensure that he gets made whole. With the underreporting that took place and the documents that we now have that shows what actually went on, we know that we have a responsibility to work with him to make sure he does get made whole. And so we're working towards that, and we're hoping that he'll be able to come to the table. We're excited to be able to make that happen. And so we want to make sure that everybody knows that we're working diligently to get him to the table so that we can get that taken care of.
Now you say make whole. Will that include saying, hey, 780 sets, 1,200 minifigs, we're going to tell you what we have where, we're going to tell you what we think was sold? Does that come with making him whole?
Yes. Yep. Being able to show all the documents, and if he was, again, as we believe through the documentation, not paid the way that he should have been, then we would cover the difference.
All right, Mr. Ammon McNabb, CEO of Bricks and Minifigs, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
All right.
He doesn't look too happy. No, I'm not Mormon, my friends. I am not Mormon.
The other thing I was going to say, so again, there's a ton of information that's coming in from outside Reckless Ben's videos and all kinds of other stuff. There was an interesting interview with a former franchisee owner, and he became a franchisee owner right around the time that Crystal did. And he was saying that BAM was pushing to expand so rapidly, and the vast majority of their money and their profits were from the franchise fees, not necessarily from the sale proceeds. The 10%.
I think right, and that's what Crystal was defaulting on to a large extent, was she couldn't keep paying the fees, the franchise fees.
The franchise fees, yeah. And so if the big push for corporate is to open more and more and more franchises, I remember the first one opened by me maybe a year and a half ago. It wasn't that long ago. And now there's 3 by me. So if that's their big source of revenue for corporate, and now this is out there, there's not going to be a whole lot of new stores opening. So I don't think it's from corporate's perspective, I don't think it's people not going to the franchise to buy the Lego anymore that's going to hurt them. It's that people are not going to want to open new franchises. That's the real thing that's going to hurt them.
Yeah.
That might be their true damages. And that's a whole different thing. As far
it's like the McDonald's story, right? With the franchises. We've all seen the clip from the movie, I suppose, where the accountant or whoever he is telling Ray Kroc, oh, you don't actually run a burger business.
yeah.
You're not in the business of burgers. You're in the business of franchises that happen to sell burgers.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, these guys would be in the same model. They're not really in the business of selling Legos. There might not be a Legos anywhere in BAM headquarters. Who knows? They're in the business of selling franchises that people are willing to pay them money to possess.
That is their bread and butter, and that's what they're scared of, and that would be their true damages, actually, if they're successful in a claim.
Man, it could be so much money.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I was like, that's a lot of money. The franchise agreement was what, $40,000 up front, and then a bunch of other things if you go through the franchise agreement. And that's just the upfront. And then you got to keep making the payments. That's so much money. They went from fairly small in 2023. Again, this is reported by the former franchisee owner that did an interview. Fairly small to 2023 to having over 300 franchises by 2025, 2026. That's huge growth. And that's so much money. That's what they're concerned with losing.
And often, often franchisees, I got to say, I've seen cases where it really feels exploitative, where they're talking people into borrowing money, borrowing from friends and family to get into a franchise arrangement that's never going to be profitable. They're either not capable of really running a business, or the business isn't really viable. But the franchisor doesn't care. They just care about getting their payments. So they lock you in. You commit for a year. You can't make it work, and then they just take the store back from you and give it to another franchisee.
It's like it's like a timeshare. It makes sense for a very small select group of people, and for everyone else, it's a complete disaster. Franchise ownership.
I mean, that's why McDonald's franchises are so expensive, right? Because it's such a proven business model that you mitigate a lot of that risk, but that's why you have to pay so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who was an airline pilot, and he opened up it wasn't a McDonald's, but it was some kind of fast food franchise. And, he did it for like 9 months, and a really smart guy, but couldn't make it work.
That's this former franchisee owner. He said he opened it. He ran it from like May 2023 to May 2024. And that was it. He was like, it was a bad spot. I don't know. Like opening day, we did like $16,000 worth of sales. We thought this was great. And then it was his debt. And he couldn't make it work. And he said he got no support from corporate. That was his other thing that he said.
Well, they were getting their money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's like once the other party has their check, you don't hear from them again. That's all over. All that very kind stuff they were saying to you before. Once they have their money, they're gone. Yeah. Get everything you need before the check goes out, my friends, because they're not coming back. All right. Let me see if we have anything.
So did we determine who stole the Lego?
No. So from a perspective of, I'm in concurrence with you. So you've persuaded me. From the perspective of who bears the ultimate legal liability here, I think it's corporate. I think that would be a difficult argument to go against on the legal merits. In terms of who actually, like through malice, stole this stuff, I think we're looking at the franchisees. I don't know if it's Josh and Brandon, the second owners, who came into the store and saw all this, basically what they perceived as free inventory, that they could, a lot of it, right? Like 5-6 figures worth of, it's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Or if it was Crystal and what the heck was her name? Benjamin.
Ben was her husband's name, yeah.
Whether they had all this inventory and they figured, hey, and I'm not sure, for example, I expect it was Brian they were dealing with. He signed it, right? The consignment agreement.
Yeah.
Brian Mansell. But they may have been thinking, hey, listen, the guy who really knows about this stuff is 83 years old and on his deathbed, and we can play, loose and fast with this stuff. And if they ever come and, they can prove that we owe them the money, we'll pay them. And maybe they can't. And, maybe they'll get hit by a bus and we just get to keep all this money.
I tend to think, at least with regard to Crystal, and I have no reason to suspect this, but with regard to Crystal's dealing with Brian, or Crystal and Ben's dealing with Brian, I feel like it was everyone had the right intentions. And then, like you said, human nature kind of took over. That's just my perception, but I have no reason to believe that or support that.
I mean, a big factor here, of course, is that a lot of the people involved in all this appear to have an IQ of about 90. So they're and Reckless Ben is way smarter than that. So he's very good at manipulating people into behaving in ways and saying things that are going to make great content for his videos. And then, of course, he can clip things up, not necessarily in full context and very entertaining content. For example, if this CEO had presented himself to Ben outside the door of his corporate headquarters the way he just did in that video, really? Someone saying that we have their Legos and they're not getting paid? Just let me write down their name. Let me look into it. We'll take care of it. None of this would have ever happened. But I suspect if we had the full video of that interaction with that CEO outside the door, Ben would have been acting in a way calculated to get that guy to start acting irrationally, right?
Yeah, and I got to go back and look, and I have no reason to believe that this is the case. But at one point he says, we went to corporate before we went to the franchise, and then after the franchise said we need to talk to corporate, we went back to corporate. But I don't think that's necessarily the order of operations. I think he's wearing the same shirt, and that's what I want to go check. I don't want to say that he is, and that Ben spliced it to make it look like a before and after, and it really wasn't. But I want to say he might be wearing the same shirt, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it was the same day either. I mean, some people just wear the same shirts every day.
I have a lot of white shirts that look just like this.
That's true. Yeah. Or like I have like my law firm shirts. I have so many of them that I could put on a different one every day of the week, and it would look like I was wearing the same shirt every day. So,
hey, Lars Larson, if you want to say I'm lying, it's fine. I don't take it personally, but you got to make it a $5 minimum super chat. And you have to tell me what the lie is. What was the lie? A little bit of specificity never hurts anybody, my friends. It's fine.
I can put in a link to the letter, but I also have a stream coming up in about an hour, a little bit longer, where we're going to be doing some breakdown of the COO statements that he's made, but then also we're going to talk about this letter too. So I have another stream coming up, and if you guys are on my channel, you will be redirected to that when this stream ends.
Hey, put the link in. Put that link to your stream in the private chat, and I'll share it so my audience gets it too.
Oh, okay. We'll do that. There we go. It should be in the private chat. No.
There we go.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah. So you guys, yeah. So if you're on Bronca's side, he can post that, and if you're on my side, you'll be automatically redirected when the stream ends. So we're going to go over that. We're also going to go over the comments that the COO made, because he was more hostile than the CEO, which it's insane. He was asked some tough questions, but he responded oddly. So we're going to talk about that. And this has nothing to do with the law. It just has to do with like people putting their foots in their mouth. And that's why the thumbnail is the COO just digging himself a hole.
I'm just going to plug this into my chat before we sign out, so I can make sure they get it. Okay. So this is the link to David's upcoming. Is top of the hour? Is that what you said?
Actually, it's scheduled for 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, so hour and 15 from now.
Okay. All right, folks, you have the link. Go ahead, click. I would click over right now and hit the notify me button to make sure you don't miss even a second of David's next stream on all this. David, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that expanded video where it's absolutely clear that the new franchisees were put on notice about the Brian Mansell consignment, because that was the first evidence I've seen of that. And to me, that's a huge game changer.
Yeah, no, it was good for them to put out the unedited stuff. I got that sent to me from actually, if you watch part 2, there's a gentleman who gets his phone taken by the cops. His name is I can't remember now off the top of my head. Anyways, he sent it to me. I've been chatting with him. I was trying to get him on a stream, but so that was very nice of him. And we have a ton
I do have
of
a couple last minute super chats. I think this is for you. $10 at the I think end of the day. Ben accomplished what many YouTubers cannot do in mere months and blew it up in mere weeks. He got you debating about it and didn't even shoot anyone. He's I think it's supposed to be rising genius. He's a very clever guy. I don't have any personal animus to Reckless Ben.
Well, I said in somebody's chat the other day, that was criticized. Oh, actually, no, you know what? It was like Nate the Lawyer's stream earlier. Reckless Ben's goal was not to achieve a legal victory over Bricks and Minifigs. Reckless Ben's goal was to bring attention to this situation, and he did it. He achieved his goal, and he got 4 million views and 2 million on the one he dropped just a few hours ago. So that was his goal, and that's what he achieved.
Yeah, and to be clear, I said this at the beginning. He's an incredibly talented guy. I mean, the production value is very high. The videos are very funny. He's a talent. He's a talent. I just hope he hasn't buried himself under too much legal liability. One last one, and then we'll wrap up. Kibble Wibble, $5 says Branca has been absorbed into big Lego. I'm a Lego licker, I guess. Our heroes have fallen.
I got
All right, guys.
one
Hey,
last
David.
question. Well, I got one
yeah.
last question
Go
for
ahead.
you. Now that you've been involved in a Lego legal matter, would you be willing to come on to a Lego Law Life and Libations for an interview stream?
Yeah, sure.
We build
What is that?
Lego.
What is-
We interview people while at the same time building Lego.
I don't own any Lego.
I'll send you a set. We're good.
All right, yeah, sure. I'll be happy to do it. But by the way, when I was a kid, I grew up in Belgium, in Europe. I lived there for a couple of years as a kid, and Legos even then were huge. Then when I came to America, I had like a hefty bag, like a lawn bag full of Legos. That's how many I had, and my mom threw them away.
Oh no!
I know. Now they didn't have kits in those days. There was no Star Wars. It was just the blocks, the basic stuff. But yeah, one day I came home, it was all gone. I guess I got tired of stepping on them.
Nice. That's fun.
All right, guys. Hey, David, thanks again. You know where to find me, man. If you ever want me on, I'm always happy to do it. And I hope everyone enjoyed the show. And until next time, I remain attorney Andrew Branca for The Branca Show. And Dave is?
MLS, Making Law Simple.
All right, check him out, man. Take care, buddy. Bye.